Comedian Ricky Gervais has come under fire for his latest show, Armageddon, as he tears into woke culture, taking a swipe at James Corden and also Gary Lineker. Two great targets.
I stand by the traffic lights and I wait for a big lorry to pull up.
It faces backlash as thousands have signed a petition for him to axe some of his jokes. Can we hear this joke here? I wanted to hear that joke. That's the joke with the punchline with Gary Lineker in it. Anyway, joining me now is comedian Diane Spencer. Diane, this latest clip, it's fantastic. I check it out. It's on my Twitter feed. It's on the GB News Twitter feed. It's basically Ricky Gervais. Well, can you talk us through the sketch?
Ricky Gervais says, I love illegal immigrants. I'm woke now. And he says, I stand on the beach. And when he pulls the boats onto the beach and he says, women and children first. No? Oh, just you lads. All right, come on then, lads. Come on. So that's his first lovely little dig. And then he does this thing where he says he stands at a bus stop and he peers under a lorry and he sees a guy clinging on and he says, you all right, mate? And the guy goes, yeah, I'm just on my way to Gary Lineker's house. And he goes, oh yeah, you'll be fine. So I am not actually a Ricky Gervais fan. I mean, what we know about comedy is that obviously it's different flavors for different folks, you know. But I do find him funny in different places. And this new special has come out and it's his writing and it's called Armageddon. I mean, I would think, you know, him being an atheist, there's probably going to be a lot of jokes in there about the end of the world and things like that. But it seems that some people have got their knickers in a twist and they are writing to Netflix because they don't want those jokes spoken, which is just... Are we not beyond this by now? Because I'm pretty sure Ricky Gervais, who has a massive worldwide fan base, did not write the show for the people who already dislike him and who won't buy tickets anyway.
Precisely, and I think actually, Diane, we do now have the clip to show so GB News viewers can hear what people are getting offended at. Here it is.
Well, I am woke now and I can prove it. Here you go. I love illegal immigrants. Yeah, sue me now. Sometimes I go down to Dover for the day, right? And I look out, right? I look for a boat and I see a dinghy with about 60 of them and I go over here, like, right? And I pull them into shore and I go, women and children first. They go, there are no women and children. Just you lads, is it? Just come on, lads. Come on, lads. If I go down there one day and there's no boat, I am absolutely gutted. I just sort of wander into town and I stand by the traffic lights and I wait for a big lorry to pull up, right? And I look underneath and there's a lad sort of clutching like that. And I go, where you headed? And he goes, Gary Lineker's house. I go, it's just down there.
So I'm so glad we could get to play that.
By the person whose joke it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad we got that clip because Gervais, we saw when he did the Golden Globes, he just lambasts the pompous. And what's been really interesting about this, and I think even funnier, aside from the actual sketch itself, Diane, has been the predictable, pathetic backlash. The Independent wrote a piece on Ricky Gervais on this particular sketch, saying he's basically Suella Braverman, but a comedian. Are we at the stage now where we're not allowed to lambast multimillionaires who hold political views that the majority of Britain don't? Surely that's what satire and comedy is about. Lineker is an absolutely fitting target for this kind of humour.
Well, like I said at the start, humour is always dependent on the person who creates it, the person who listens to it, what vibes with them and what doesn't. That article by The Independent was very snotty. And you know what? Gervais is popular, so he is a target. But like I said, he's not writing it for these snotty reviewers who were never going to buy a ticket. They were never going to go see him. No matter what he brought out, it would be very likely that they would criticize it. He probably, in many people's eyes, can't do any right. So I don't think it's going to put off the people who are buying tickets. I think the people whose opinions are really important in this are his fans. I think instead of listening to these newspapers who would have just tore him down anyway. Talk to the fans of Ricky Gervais, the people who went to see the show live, the people who have watched it on Netflix. See what they think of it, because that's who it's for. And I think it's really sad that there's a group of people out there who are saying, no, you can't enjoy your comedy. It's inappropriate. And you're right. He's taking the mickey out of Gary Lineker, who, I mean, for goodness sake, are we supposed to curtsy every time Gary Lineker walks past? Like, that man, he thinks he's some kind of martyr. His head is so big. It's a wonder he can eat crisps. Like, he probably can't see the packet through his massive ego. So I think Ricky Gervais should do jokes on whatever he likes, because it's for his crowd. And let's listen to what their opinions of his jokes are.
Well, Diane, you've hit the nail on the head. His humour is closer than knuckle, it's closer to the bone, but it's obviously massively, massively popular because he's making millions of quid out of it. His tours are a total sellout. His shows are the highest rated things on Netflix. And an interesting thing that's come out is part of the criticism of the people who can't stand the fact that his so-called contrarian, racist, transphobic, anti-immigrant views are so popular. They're saying, well, he can only say this because he's so rich. But they're kind of answering their own question, because if he wasn't, they'd be trying to cancel his career, they'd be trying to shut down his shows, they'd be trying to run him out of every theatre across the land, but they can't do that because he's Ricky Gervais, and that is what makes their heads rotate.
It really does. And I find that if for a start, can I just underline, I do not think in any way, shape or form that Ricky Gervais is racist or bigoted or anti-immigrant.
Of course he's not.
I don't think he's any of those things. And I think him poking fun at the situation is kind of a crucial thing to do as a comedian and just sort of test the waters. But yeah, that they're so angry that he can be successful and not on their terms. It's a bit like GB News. They get so angry every time GB News does something exciting and people are involved and people love watching the channel, that you have this sort of group of people who can't stand the fact that we're having a good time. They get very angry and they try to attack us. But it's a lot of keyboard warrior stuff. I think that if Ricky Gervais suddenly announced a date at a theatre in London, I'm pretty sure it would sell out in seconds. And of course, there would be all this online hoo-ha. Oh, we're going to protest. You shouldn't do this. But at the end of the day, they're probably not going to turn up. And the people who do turn up will have a fantastic show because they're going to see the comedian that they really enjoy.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, Diane, you're not only correct to say that Ricky Gervais isn't racist, he isn't any of those things. In fact, he's actually quite liberal. He's into animal rights. He tells touching stories about death and sorrow and loss. And he's not remotely right-wing or xenophobic or any of those things. But he understands that the kind of people that they are deserve to be utterly lambasted. They deserve to be parodied, especially if they're minted. Hence my reference to him at the Garden Globes. If you're a millionaire and you're going to be telling me how to live my life, then you especially become a tall poppy. You especially deserve to get it in the neck, and you have no right to bleat back. And isn't it ironic that we see with
I disagree with you there.
You do? Go on then.
I think if you are there and you're being a millionaire and you're telling the common folk how to live their lives, you deserve to have the mickey taken out of you, definitely. But I do then think you also have the right to respond to the fact that the mickey was taken out of you, because you said they don't have a right to reply, but I think they do. I think it flows both ways all the time.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that they can exercise that via X or Twitter or whatever it's called. But I mean,
it's when they do it via their lawyers that I think it's wrong.
Yeah. The idea that Gary Lineker will be hurt by this and doesn't have the right to reply is funny in itself. Diane Spencer, thank you for joining us in this Christmas period. Thank you so much. Wonderful. It's so important to keep laughing at these people and all this stuff. I asked you to get in touch earlier on with your views, and you did. On Ricky Gervais, Glennis says this: I'm not a real fan of Ricky Gervais, but I thought his joke about migrants heading to Gary Lineker's home was spot on. Gary Lineker, after all, says some offensive things himself. Fair point there, Glennis. Stuart says this: Ricky Gervais is very clever and knows how to add comments into a joke and will infuriate woke communities. From the Netflix ratings, it seems that we non-woke are still the majority. Stuart, I'll drink to that. And on other things, on inheritance tax, Gwyneth says this: inheritance tax doesn't only affect the very rich 4% of the population, it affects the very ordinary Londoner who inherits the family house. It's a myth that it's brilliant for everyone but the rich. And we're looking ahead to the general election in the next year. Bridget says this: if the Tories want to win the election, they need to restore the standard of living and stop overspending public money. Thank you very much.